This will forever be remembered as the day the American people regained control of their country.
The former president's outreach to male voters seemingly paying off.
Who would have thought that Barron Trump could have such an unexpected influence on his father's media choices? Well, it turns out that the young Trump had a hand in the monumental decision for his father, former President Donald Trump, to appear on Joe Rogan's podcast. This interview wasn't just another political chat. No, it was a media event that shocked many and stirred the pot in ways few could have predicted. So, how did Barron influence this move? And what impact did Trump's appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience really have on the audience and public discourse? In today's video, we'll be breaking down the aftermath of Trump's game-changing appearance on one of the most influential podcasts in the world, from the reactions of the public to the lasting effects this might have on his media strategy. Subscribe to now. When Trump appeared on Joe Rogan's podcast, it wasn't just another interview, it was a cultural moment. Rogan's podcast has become a go-to platform for controversial and high-profile figures. But even by his standards, this was huge. Trump's appearance on Rogan's show set the internet ablaze and turned heads in the media world. Now that the dust has settled, we can start to see the profound impact this interview has had. It wasn't just about the topics discussed or the shocking comments that were made, it was about the shift in media strategy that it represented. By opting for Rogan over traditional news outlets, Trump made a calculated decision to reach a broader and younger audience, many of whom may not have been as engaged with his political message before. The podcast format allowed Trump to speak freely, without the usual filters of mainstream media, which in itself is a game-changer in how he engages with the public. But what was his motivation, and why now? As we unpack the interview, we'll examine how it has shaped Trump's image post-presidency and the subtle, yet powerful, influence of his son, Barron, who pushed him toward this direction. While many of us were focused on the political angles of the interview, something much more subtle was at play: Barron Trump's influence. It's been suggested that Barron's increasing interest in the digital world and social media might have quietly shaped his father's decision. While we may never know the full extent of their conversations, it's clear that Barron's perspective on media and engagement in the digital age played a role in guiding Trump toward Rogan's platform. Barron, who has often been seen as the quiet and reserved member of the Trump family, seems to have a deep understanding of how powerful social media and alternative media channels can be in reaching new audiences. This quiet influence is starting to make waves, and the Rogan appearance was likely the first public manifestation of it. Barron may have seen Joe Rogan's podcast as a way for his father to speak directly to a younger, more diverse crowd, a strategy that could pay off as Trump looks ahead to future political endeavors. This move could have been as much about reaching the right audience as it was about stepping away from traditional media's long-standing influence over his narrative. So, how did Joe Rogan react to having Trump on his podcast? Well, if you know Rogan, you know that he doesn't shy away from difficult questions or hot-button issues, and this interview was no different. From the start, it was clear that the conversation was going to be far from ordinary. Rogan didn't hold back, challenging Trump on everything from his presidency to his post-presidential plans. While the interview was definitely respectful, it was also tense at times, as Rogan didn't hesitate to press Trump on his controversial statements and actions. But that's what made this interview so compelling. Rogan has built his reputation on being able to bring out honest, unfiltered conversations, and this sit-down with Trump was no exception. It's safe to say that this interview won't be forgotten anytime soon. Whether you agreed with Trump's positions or not, the fact that the former president appeared on Rogan's show marked a monumental shift in how political figures approach media. The question now is, how will this interview shape future media appearances by Trump and other politicians? As anticipated, Trump didn't hold back during his Rogan interview, discussing everything from his controversial time in office to his personal opinions on current political issues. What made this interview particularly interesting was the range of topics Trump covered, many of which were off-limits during his time as president. For one, Trump's thoughts on the future of American politics were eye-opening. He hinted at potential new political strategies, including the possibility of furthering his media influence and involvement in future political campaigns. Many were particularly intrigued by his thoughts on the Republican Party's direction and the way forward for conservative politics. Trump also took time to reflect on his presidency, offering insights into his decision-making process and the challenges he faced while in office. It was an unfiltered, candid look at his time in power, and some of his answers were more revealing than anyone expected. His willingness to share his views without the constraints of scripted answers made the interview a fascinating watch for both supporters and critics alike. If there's one thing that's clear, it's that Barron Trump's influence is becoming more pronounced, even though he's rarely in the public spotlight. While he hasn't been as outspoken as his older siblings, Barron's opinions seem to be quietly shaping his father's political and media decisions. In this interview, we saw subtle hints of Barron's influence, especially when it comes to topics like social media, technology, and public engagement. Barron has grown up in an age where digital communication and alternative news sources dominate, and it's likely that his views on these platforms are having an impact on Trump's own perspectives. Could Barron's quiet influence be a key factor in Trump's shift towards more unconventional media platforms like Joe Rogan's podcast? It's becoming more likely. While Barron's influence on this decision has been clear, the rest of the Trump family must have had their own thoughts about his appearance on Rogan's podcast. Ivanka, Donald Jr., and even Melania were undoubtedly watching closely as the interview played out, each with their own take on their father's media strategy. Some might have been supportive, recognizing the potential of reaching a new audience. Others, however, might have been more skeptical, questioning whether an appearance on a platform like Rogan's was the best move for Trump's image. It's fascinating to think about the behind-the-scenes discussions that might have taken place within the family. Did they all agree with this unconventional approach? Or was there some internal debate? One of the most interesting aspects of Trump's appearance on Joe Rogan's podcast was his decision to go outside traditional media channels. For years, Trump has been a fixture of the cable news cycle, but this move to Rogan's podcast shows that he's looking to tap into new audiences, especially those who might not typically follow him on mainstream news. Rogan's podcast is known for attracting a younger, more diverse crowd that often gravitates toward alternative media sources. This is exactly the type of audience Trump needs to connect with if he wants to build a wider base, especially as his political career potentially moves into new phases. By appearing on Rogan's show, Trump is acknowledging the power of digital platforms and alternative media in shaping public discourse. It's a strategic move that could pay off in the long run. The public reaction to Trump's interview on Joe Rogan's podcast has been nothing short of explosive. Supporters are hailing it as a bold move, one that shows Trump is willing to engage with new audiences and step outside the traditional political playbook. On the other hand, critics are quick to point out that Trump's appearance on Rogan's show might just be another attempt to control the narrative and further his own agenda. What's clear is that the buzz surrounding the interview is massive. Social media platforms were flooded with reactions, and news outlets scrambled to cover every angle of the conversation. This interview has sparked new debates, reignited old controversies, and reignited discussions about Trump's role in American politics. So, what's next for Trump after his appearance on Joe Rogan's podcast? The implications of this interview are still unfolding, but one thing is certain: Trump's media strategy has shifted. The Rogan effect could be the catalyst for a broader media campaign, one that further distances him from traditional outlets and embraces the digital age in ways we've never seen before. And there you have it. Trump's appearance on Joe Rogan's podcast was more than just an interview. It was a strategic move that will have lasting impacts on his public image, his media approach, and potentially his future political ambitions. From the unexpected influence of Barron Trump to the way Joe Rogan's unique platform changed the conversation, this interview has set the stage for what's to come. But what do you think? Did Trump's move to appear on Rogan's show resonate with you? Do you believe Barron will play a more active role in shaping his father's political and media decisions in the future? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'm eager to hear your opinions. Don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed this breakdown and subscribe to the channel for more insights into the world of politics, media, and everything in between. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.